perfect timing, 1:14, so I have an hour and 15 minutes to get to my destination. So I'll make a quick half mile here or so, mile, and then we'll have time to sort of slow down. I hate bullies, don't you? Don't you hate people who bully people? So you're not. You said that's nice. So you actually I come away from this ordeal in the room, please. Hey, I might need to feel as honestly as I can feel in my heart. Does that mean anything to you? Does that mean anything to you? I'm not sure there's a good reason. Seriously. So there are evil enterprises afoot, and groups, evil human groups, mixing with good human groups, and good human groups do evil, because humans seek groups mostly because evil's been done to them. So you kind of got to let the groups do evil. You see, reason, the unspoken, is you join a group. Oh, I want to help the world and be close to Jesus, right? And you join a group, joined to that group as a child or whatever. We do this, it makes the world a better place. Da, 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 da. All human comes down to this, and this is what we do, and we serve, and we do da, da, da. Right? The reason that every group serves and does what it does, right, has an unspoken level that it is also doing those things because evil's been done to them, and they need to be part of groups who can do evil, and they need to be able to do evil unconsciously because they don't really believe that they are evil anymore. It has already been eradicated because the group or the spirit of the group or God's love exists in the world. It's kind of eradicated evil at the end of time, but usually after the destruction of the world. Because if evil was really dealt with at the end of the time, it would augur the creation of the world, wouldn't it? Because creation should have dealt with evil right from the beginning. Just like it's dealt with the reproduction of billions and billions of living things from the beginning. Apparently, evil was left out. Instead, we live that out in chronological time, the imminent destruction of the world by virtue of our particular evil or on us through various heavenly circumstances, none of which any of us could control. And they just won't tell you that specifically, right? That's Christianity. That's all of the philosophy of Oxford and Harvard at its core, in its archaic roots, right? It's all based on death. It's all based that nothing is solved, but that at the end of the time, it can only be solved by everything being destroyed. Now, number 2, connected to the letter S, which is the sun, is a problem that supposes that all relationships are founded in their fundamental identity and yours, in mutual annihilation. And so the genders and their operation in the world are scripted in the way that our minds are transported into a theatrical and virtual spaces in economic realities and so forth, supplied our labor, supplied our sweat and blood for many laudable reasons that make buildings and bridges. Also take our abstract functions to a level where the groups we join and why have, in ways that we can be persuaded by witches and royalty of the world, very disastrous effects on each other through time. So that we might as well believe that evil is just because we're never disposed to do anything about it in any real sense, because we're all schizophrenics. Okay, this is the great leverage, this is the great religious prerogative which is exerted over and into the womb of all human beings. Of love over you is the ledger of love, the ledgar, right? The pal put over the sun, and over the fundamental communication of life that allows our bodies to be born. And not because they are doomed to die, but because they are doomed to be reborn that to go back to the heaven whence you came. And even though most people on earth believe in some form of heaven, they don't realize that their own thoughts contradict all of the philosophies that they live out, which are based on death. The world is going to end, the comet's going to hit you, right? It's meant to be this cold, deadly place that could hurl a giant planet-sized hunk of ice at you at any time and take everything away from you. It's ridiculous. Do you know that? It's stupid. Did you know that throughout thousands of years, nobody ever believed that? They tell you that one of them fucking caused the destruction of the dinosaurs. Hilarious. Hilarious. Right? Fictions for adults. So it's always about death. Right? Punctuated equilibriums. Right? That makes death the hero. Right? Consciousness was to be born. That's the occult use of the number 2. Our fundamental relationships, like one generation to the other, is that some consciousness has to die for other consciousness to be born. That's a pretty extreme statement by Oprah Winfrey, right? Isn't it? The queen of social and emotional well-being in the world. 90s, right? That's strange, isn't it? Where do you think that comes from? Well, it comes from the use of the number 2, that all relationships are ultimately patterned upon mutual annihilation. That's why Achilles and Memnon in the Iliad, their very identity, their clash, and the spiral dance of their is built by a fulcrum and an epicenter of mutual annihilation. The same thing in the movie Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, who in Scarface says, "I tell the truth, even when I lie." Because even if the biggest lie in the world became the truth, you wouldn't know it, because it would defy your ability to comprehend it. And your daily dose of subconscious witchcraft defies your ability to bother start to look at even that. Other infidelities between what's really happening at the subconscious level, where your brain is often working at its best, to the conscious level, where you have a little more versatility, kind of choose what you believe to rationalize things. So you may have grown up and said, and learned to rationalize all kinds of things. Why is there poverty? Well, you listen to a child tell you why there's poverty, they're going to tell you how they rationalize poverty. At a certain point in their life after they've been to college, why did millions of children need to be starved? Because of policy. Well, here's the reason. Here's the reason. Here's the reason. Madeline says, you know what? We have a good reason to do that. What kind of world do you think that is? You and I should feel safe. Do you really think that 1 million Iraqi children need to be starved to death? I don't think so. I might not have your complicated education and but I think you're just a fucking douchebag who's lost the point and the plot of all human life. You don't kill children. There's never a good reason to do so. Find another way, you fuckwit. But if your sense of identity in American necessitates, by logical extent, wielding a over innocent children to the mortification of hundreds of thousands, then you're really practicing the Gnostic number 2, that all relationships are portend mutual annihilation by the very nature of their identity. So the extension of being American is being dead, right? And making death look good, right? Death becomes you. And there are lots of parts of the human language and chronological time and the Kalavendar groom you for death. The hours of the day are the hours of Horus, related to Set. Just like you set the clock, you basically die every hour of the day, right? The clock is your prison. The numbers, the circle of Odin becomes a 0. The hero is the 0, right? The hero must by nature be annihilated and become as though nothing. And only when you complete everything can you feel the euphoria of becoming what you're supposed to. Influence of the various industrial currents of role-playing in the theater, like the financial culture in the world. So media and finance and religion hold it together, right? Because they are using your mind and your heritage more intelligently than you are. Right? And you're being entertained by what amounts to the death of your own heritage. The supplanting of it by the main fundamental part of all media, which is witchcraft, directed at your subconscious. The stories, the plots, the sympathies, wonderful as they are rooted in a certain type of mindset that is more economically advantageous to rule over you. And it has to do with relationships based on mutual analysis. Coming to rash judgments, for one, and killing scapegoats, who just be really evil people, but might not be, right? So in a movie about American gung-ho soldiers, the bad guy is killed by an armor-piercing, missile that flies up his ass and blows him to bits. And you're like, yay! But if you did that to anyone else, you'd be considered a total megalomaniac psycho, right? So all of a sudden you could lower your inhibitions, sit there in a darkened theater, and torture and annihilate potentially children, people, all human beings that war has touched, because they are the scapegoat, the evil person in the movie. And so now it's okay for soldiers to kill people, because you had to kill your best friend, the colonel, who was trying to nuclear annihilate the entire world, because he wasn't happy about American foreign policy pulling out of Afghanistan after almost half a century of genocide. And you sit there clapping, going, everything is right with the world again, especially if you've got a little child there waving off the attack helicopters at the last minute so the hero father can save the day by cold-blooded murder of another man, a scapegoat who's been set up by the actor for you to want to kill him by performing acts throughout the film motivated by high ideals and principles and patriotism, which nonetheless commit him to very murderous decisions and effects on other people at a mass scale. You're being taught, essentially, a part of the dark side of the American mind. And then you're put into a pleasant psychosis at the end of the film. And they close the lid, and you think, oh, good. As long as my favorite transgendered actor can blow the living shit out of an innocent person, we're all okay. That's a good use of my tax dollars. So you understand that Hollywood is owned by the Pentagon, okay? But overall, the whole thing is owned by royalty, and they play all the actors of the world. Highly, highly, highly skilled, right? Just like you'd expect, like someone who's like a Navy SEAL to be a very skilled fighter, and skilled in many other things, right? Like Jason Bourne, language, perception, acting, role-playing, situational awareness, right? Intelligence, counterintelligence, right? Disguise, all that kind of stuff. Well, that's what actors really do for a living. And they put it right in front of you, see, every day. Because that's what they're doing in the world. That's why actors are always ugly. That's why politicians are always ugly. Because they're always wearing disguises. And I abhor disguises. Right? And it teaches your children to lower their inhibitions by emulating them and wearing disguises. Because indeed, what's coming out from the human mind is that at a deep level, it's had long had to disguise itself, and the lengths to which it has to go to cope with the demands placed upon it one generation after the next. And this leads to a lot of the grief and abuse that happens domestically all over the world. And always the violence is more than the voice to say. Voice, right? Violence always silences the voice, but it will tell them you need to know that if anyone would listen to it, they could solve all the violence in the world. Violence is the cure to all violence. And cancer is the cure to all cancer. But if you don't listen to people, and you don't have the guts, or perhaps you think it wise not to, a lot of sounds about things people don't normally talk about, to find out why things hurt people, even though everybody wants to be nice, then you won't. And you won't have to endure it. It can be quite unpleasant, looking into the dark things. Not some dark thing like a metaphysical book, not some dark satanic witchcraft, just the hard things. The hard things that people you've known who seemed really nice were doing everything they could to make it better. And you could tell them the story and say, oh, that's what unconditional love is for, man. Unconditional love will deal with that. You got to understand, man. Yeah, I get it. But you need the love, you need the forgiveness. You need this, you need that. Oh, yeah. You need to just be modest. Oh, yeah. The Lord for you. You know, and they're always ready to take the problem away. Don't take the problem away from me. You know, that's not what I'm asking you to do. Right? Just listen. Stop trying to do things about it. Just listen. Just listen. But not like you're passively listening to someone hypnotize you. Listen because you want to digest what's being said and see what it really means to you. Isn't that what communication is for? At certain levels? Sacred, teaching, educational, enlightening, honest, crude, open, naked, pure, angry or bitter, confused, agonized. Do you think anyone around you hasn't been agonized a little bit? Are we waiting for everyone to be free of agony so we can start fucking listening to them again? That's not going to happen. If you owe something to your fellow man, if there is a social compact, you owe it to them to listen more. Because, in all fairness, it's very easy not to. When you walk down the street every day and you see homeless people, it's very easy to stop noticing them. Whereas if you bring a friend to town from a rural area, they're like, whoa, dude. They've been handing out change here and there. Like, whoa, get a meal, man. You know, you're like, whoa, you can't do that every day. You know? So you do get used to holding things in. Whenever I hear about a time in history, I think, what would it be like to be there? And is it really as nice as everyone thinks it is? You'll read books about World War II that make it sound like it's the best time of their lives. In fact, a writer named, it'll come to me. Yeah, I like his work, but I mean, he's you know, oh my god. If you like the book, you shouldn't really be bad to it, but, it'll come to me. Anyway, until it does. He wrote books of fiction around World War II, but he also said, quite candidly, that since World War II occupied people in their 20s, and everything that you do in your 20s is exciting, they came to reasons they couldn't control, to be really happy about whatever happened in World War II, because they were in their 20s and there was lots of exciting things to do. A lot of exciting things in the build-up to, you know, a convoy, or, you know, launching some kind of violence upon another world, and mating and having sex and finding your wife and dating, losing people, and going up in a fighter and not knowing if you're going to come back, and how that does kind of like can seem kind of exciting in a way. Imagine your job was to come home and go, wow, look, I'm still alive. You know, come on, let's be fair. I'm not saying that war isn't hard. Oh, what's that guy's name? Anyway, it'll come to me. He was kind of like the Michael Crichton of his time. And it's pretty good if you ever find it. Oh, when I think of it, I'll let you know. I gotta take a shit. Which is good in a way, but bad in others because, let's see what's up here. Let's just go in here for a second. This is somebody's house. At least there's some moss and stuff around here. Twice is good. I just realized I don't think I cleaned my hair that long. dark areas? Did you? Yeah. I looked circumstances. I saw what I'm reporting. I could report more. It's worth it at this point because I don't trust you to be a neutral. You don't have to do that. How do you think someone who's complained of sexual assault that's something that would say, well, no, you don't need to be rude, do you? Okay, you don't need to be rude. Right. I bet you. Right. You know, I've noticed that you guys are very certain of it. Right? But you can't tell me like this. Be careful around people who, by their job or not, or they've elected to be their job, not to tell you the truth. Not to live in the truth. Man, I can't believe I cracked again. That's quite amazing. It's really quite amazing, actually. Because I've had 2 good cramps today already. It's like, wow, 3rd. That's pretty good. Oh, okay. So, keep moving. Get home. We saw bear tracks today. Yeah, so I've walked these tracks from with my mom, usually, and I've really enjoyed it. You know, I've enjoyed it more in the past when I was more pleasantly exposed towards locals, and that's been eroded over the years. At some point, you got to be honest with yourself about how you really feel, and then the sum of your experiences leads you to feel really bad about an area, and it does. You just become someone who feels bad about the area, and it sucks. But what are you going to do? Pretend like you like it? Pretend like you haven't been bullied and stalked by any number of people whom you don't like to see and whom you don't want to know and you would rather not have been approached by to begin with, right? And you don't enjoy it. When you get approached by people and you're not enjoying yourself, it doesn't feel very good. You know, I have this weird romantic feeling that if people were really healthy, like that guy I passed on the tracks just with his daughter, and it's just like, if they were really healthy and joyful, they'd meet my gaze and they'd be like, hey, instead of being so close. And you can tell like he was a little bit of an off person. Had a beard. I don't think young men should have beards. It covers up your face, you know. It covers it. It's a disguise, essentially. I know a lot of men with beards who were sexual predators. Now, I'm using that phrase, and do I mean that they touch little children? Do I mean they rape people? I mean that they have every bit as uninhibited a nature as many of their female contemporaries when it comes to sex and many other things, even personal property rights. So, and especially personal property rights, and who don't have any conscience. And like, under any circumstance, even if someone's doing them a favor, to make sure that people know how important they are. It's kind of a white person thing. I met a lot of white men with beards who like to tell people, their employees or people, how important they are, and that they know enough about them to manipulate them if they want to. People have no doubt had very problematic childhood experiences. Being left by what remaining parent they had, being lost, being exposed to aggression between genders or one gender to another. You know, the unhappiness of mom and dad as they embark upon the very unwise institution of matrimony, which is a financial arrangement. And it's a perfect example of when I say that finance, culture, and the training of the human mind and religion and media are all connected. Like, just think about how many times you see marriage in media, how TV shows end in marriage or find their high points in people getting married. Matrimony is a financial, media, cultural, religious event, and it is very dangerous. Certainly, if you find out what matrimony means to you, and you come from a family where people enjoy it, and you know how to do it right, essentially, then great. But it doesn't come easy. It's not something you should assume. Lots of people suffer from it, to the point of murdering each other or their children. A lot of white people do little else, deprivation therapy. I should probably drink something. I'm going to sit down here in a second. So I can get away from the road. There's a white woman walking, so I don't want to come up behind her. I haven't drank enough water, so too long. Superior Pro Paint, wrapped in yellow. It's funny how the subconscious works, eh? They called it Superior Pro Paint. Brown is greener. Rain? No. Supposed to snow tomorrow tonight. Don't seem that cold. Lady's just standing down there. finish my sushi. I'm gonna take a little Tylenol just to ease my burden a little bit. Let me fucking open this thing. Sorry. Sorry about that. Oh, I was looking for this. Oh God, you see me with this woman down here is the slowest walker I've ever seen in my life. Ah, yeah, I had a real great headache all day. So let's see. I think that film, I only watched about 5 or 10 minutes of it. I think it poisoned me last night, poisoned my blood. So, yeah, it took maybe 10 minutes or so that time. I hate getting headaches. See, I wonder if you'd feel the same way. You were speaking to that. Just a tiny little touch of piece of machinery. That might be quite lethal for me to approach if the door's not open.